Hi, I'm Malak Fuad, and welcome again to What I Did Next. A couple of weeks ago, we partnered with the amazing team behind the Summit 2026. Powered by the Narrative Summit and eAnd, this event was a prelude to the larger gathering that the Narrative Summit will be hosting in October in Soma Bay. This event was important because it brought together all the most important companies in Egypt and beyond under one roof to look at how AI is impacting and will continue to impact the country and the region. How is it being viewed? How is it being used? Who's scared and who's excited about this new tech? As part of my involvement at the summit, I moderated one of the panels, and that brought together some of the alumni from the show, some of the most interesting people we've had on What I Did Next so far. Our discussion was extremely vibrant and seemed to raise as many questions as it answered. Now, I know that AI means different things to different people. For some, it's like the next frontier in human evolution. For others, it's the end of the species as we know it. I am, and Ahmed will know this, I kind of fall in the second bracket. I'm a skeptic. And I don't think many people in this room are skeptics, but I'm willing to hear and have my opinions changed. We know, of course, the main leader in the field right now is Anthropic. And Dario Amodei has a bit of a schizophrenic relationship with AI. On the one hand, he thinks it's the most amazing thing and it's going to do incredible things for humanity. And on the other hand, he says it's going to end humanity. So when someone like him is uncertain, I think for the rest of us, it's also very complicated and difficult to grasp. I think the key is we just don't know what's going to come and we don't know how things are going to evolve. We can speculate, but I think it's difficult to tell. I know the panel today are going to shed light on the big question, but from different perspectives. We have a lot of different industries present. Of course, Ahmed is an investor on a mega scale in Egypt and the Middle East. We have the media represented by Amy, wearing different hats in the media. So that's going to be interesting to hear from Amy. Of course, Mounir with his unicorn, very local business that has now gone global. We need a little thing on your head. Amer, of course, representative of the telecom industry. Very glad to have his perspective. And Karima, our VC leading light, with a very interesting 2-week trip from the US with some mega insights. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that today. I'm going to direct one question per panelist as a starting point. And then if we have some time afterwards, we're going to do a bit more of a general discussion. I'm going to begin with Ahmed. So I know, Ahmed, that you like the look of healthcare, robotics, AI diagnostics, and personalized education. It's already proven to be a game changer, AI, in all of these areas. As an investor, what are the criteria you look for when you're investing?
Interesting. The most important thing, I would say, is the exact opposite of what my panel said this morning. Sharif, stability. Okay? Sharif's looking for stability, and that is the right thing to look for infrastructure. For us, we're looking for volatility. We're looking for alpha, because if the result is certain, there's not really much to invest in as a VC, right? Everybody's going to the same place. So you're looking for breadth and uncertainty as much as possible, and you're looking for a team. This is the tricky part, and I don't want to mean it as a criticism, but the biggest problem with engineering-heavy teams, which is kind of the things I really like because I like the geeky stuff, is they fall in love with their tech and the model, not fall in love with the product and the customer. Okay, so that's the second part, is having a team that is focused on the product and the customer. And that we've done the analysis. It's when I was younger, I used to think of, 1 plus me is 3 and I'm going to make the difference. And come to learn that the marginal difference that we can add is minimal. It has to be the team, has to be in what they do, right? And on occasion, we can amp that up. Probably the last thing is, do they have a clear goal of where they're going? And if they do, and the problem they're trying to solve, that's great. The ones where you invest in a technology, which I am currently in the process of having done, and you're trying to take it to the market, you need to transition from tech to product, right? Very difficult. And lastly, I fall in love with like really deep tech geeky things. And the cycle of development can be longer than my fund life, which makes for a difficult investment decision because some of these semiconductors take years to develop. So
that's exactly what I was going to move on to actually, and ask you whether, because AI is moving so fast, and the investments that you make, are they much more short term in outlook? Because I'm assuming you're not going to be looking at a 10-year window. You're looking at a 2 to 3 years, and then you're out, or then you're rethinking the investment.
AI is a tool. There's still going to be projects that are going to take 5-10 years, no matter how much AI happens. I mentioned earlier today the idea of distributed AIs and how people are creating kind of, rogue alternate networks to create AIs. So I'm not 100% sold on this super cycle. I will tell you one of the best things an AI can do is very similar to what I do to help people. I tell them what not to do. Okay? And most people rarely ask AI, what should I not do? You ask AI, what should I do? And AI is the best complimenter. Its job is to make you feel good about yourself. Okay? I mean, anybody that's interactive with AI, you leave at the end thinking you're a genius, right? I'm smarter than the AI. It told me how smart I am and how right and how I corrected the AI, right? Talk to the AI the other way, okay? What can go wrong here? What is the mistake? How did this company die 5 years from now? How did this project blow up? What did I mess up in the process? Probably the best use of AI that nobody's taken advantage of.
Yeah. So you're doing the counterintuitive thing.
It's kind of like, when something dies, you do a post-mortem wrap-up. This is a pre-mortem, right? Before it dies, right? But seriously, it's really a good thing to do. Do the analysis of what's going to kill this, what's going to make it go wrong.
Yeah. Thanks, Ahmed. Mounir, I want to jump to you next, please. Your business is a fintech. How have you been incorporating AI specifically in the Egyptian market, and how do you see the next few years moving for you?
I'll start by saying I'm not at all skeptical about AI. It's
Good.
real. No,
I have the luxury to be skeptical. You don't.
First-hand experiencing it, it's very, very powerful, and it's very, very disruptive. And it's impacting organization structures, and it's impacting how people are doing things, and it's impacting dynamic within teams. And I always thought about dependency. Ages ago, I kept on telling my driver, you have to use Google Maps. No way. I know so much more than Google Maps. Google Maps and I know every street in Egypt. Taban, now, every time I ride a car, through trial and error, he realized that he needs to rely on Google Maps. Take this to the power of 10. In our company today, we had very, very senior management that were responsible of very complex decisions. Decisions like risk management. Who do you grant? How much limit do you grant him? Pricing. Elasticity of pricing. If we increase pricing or decrease pricing by 10%, will we overcompensate with customers or not? Who do you give the next best offer? And we had computer models that were using machine learning before large language models, and they would cluster customers, and then there was a human that would come in and would make a decision. And then we started applying large language models to our machine learning models. Suddenly, you've got insights that are coming from the data that you never thought existed. For example, in our line of business, with risk models. If someone defaulted once in any loan and has consumed 80% of their limit, you should stop their limit and not give them any other limit. Or something to do with this segment of customers, you give them this offer because they're not going to abuse it. These are abusers. Once you get into doing this, what tends to happen is people, serious managers in the company, either evolve to rely on these models or they start feeling very insecure. Because if you're a risk guy and now there's a model who's telling you what to do, then what do you do next? Take another example, customers. Hyper-personalization of customers. We have different types of customers, some who invest in money market funds, who are doing a brokerage company, some who take loans, some who use a card, and some who go in to do e-commerce. Very, very soon, with generative AI, we'll be able to hyper-personalize the screen on the app so that every customer gets the perfect use cases that he wants to use. You couldn't do that earlier. SaaS models. We had HR systems that we were renting out from a third-party provider. 2 years ago, I wanted to develop our own HR system because it fits into our incentives, into our employee management, it would take us 1.5 years to develop. Now it takes us 60 days to develop. And perfect to our needs, perfect to what we want. So you can't be skeptical. It's game-changing. And I highly, highly recommend any corporate who deals with a lot of data to start applying large language models within there and to get teams who are very, very experienced in that field.
What you're talking about so far is mainly systems within the company, correct? How you're using AI at the moment. Is it helping you interact with your customer as well? Is it changing the way you interact with customers?
100%. How do we interact with customers? Through the app, through an individual, either on the street or in a call center. Call center, all calls are transcribed right now. So any call that's happening in the call center, there's a large language model that's reading it. And if you have a problem, you know if it's a one-off problem or it's a systematic problem. You can also know if the agent is a good agent or a bad agent. All this is done by machines, not by managers. So ultimately, we will all rely on Google Maps. and that's a big problem.
Yeah. Thanks, Mounir. Amy, I'd like to move on to you. So as being in the media, you wear a lot of different hats. You've got your entrepreneur hat, your storytelling hat, and so many others. How do you view AI? Is it just a tool that makes you able to amplify certain parts of your business? I always think of you as a writer first and
Thank
foremost.
you, Malak. I appreciate that.
So for me, you're always a writer first. So, the human touch is hard to replicate.
So true.
So how do you deal with AI?
I will tell you. First of all, Lamia, Hanya, wow. Thank you so much for this. This is amazing. An E+, although usually that mention is بفلوس بس مش مشكلة. So I was watching, actually speaking to exactly what you're saying. I was watching an interview the other day with a prolific author. And one of the first questions the interviewer asked, which is a typical question now, is they asked the author, well, do you use AI when you're writing? And this is one of the best answers I've ever heard. The author looks at the journalist and said, well, no, why would I? It seems to me like getting someone else to have sex for you. And I will tell you something, as a writer, Malak, as a journalist, as someone who has worked in media and the creative economy my entire life, I felt that viscerally. I know this is a room full of suits, but we're all creatives and we all create. And I think we'd all agree that the human instinct to create, that desire to do so, has very little to do with the final outcome or the final product. It's the process. It's that wrestling with the idea, the process of discovery and following your instinct and failing and figuring it out and eventually making the kind of breakthrough that oftentimes will get you somewhere completely unexpected.
What happened to the guitar?
What did happen to
What
the
happened
guitar?
to the guitar?
I don't know. I didn't prepare that answer.
What happened to the guitar?
What happened?
Where is Axl Rose?
Where is?
I mean, it's all being generated by machine
but
now.
What I
hold
want
on,
to
no, wait,
say is music has evolved.
Music has evolved.
Creation has evolved.
Exactly.
But we have to adapt to the new wave.
Sah. And so, exactly. And so, I mean, so at the end of the day, I mean, creativity, creativity isn't about production. It's about transformation. It's about how it transforms the creator and how it transforms the person consuming the creation. And I say this as a really important caveat because in media and in storytelling, I think in journalism, especially, I think it's very, very important that we do not reduce creativity to productivity. And I'm going to put that out there. And then I'm going to say, however, as a media owner and as an entrepreneur, I am incredibly optimistic about what AI is going to do to our industry. Because I don't think AI is about replacing creativity at all.
But then how, Amy?
I'll
What
tell
are you
you.
excited about?
I'll tell you.
Specifically.
I think it's about removing the friction around creativity, around storytelling, and around journalism. At MO4, we operate across multiple storytelling and media platforms, and we have been aggressively integrating AI into our workflow processes, our content distribution processes, our content adaptation processes, parsing the vast amounts of information and content that comes through our doors every single day. What we're doing is really removing so much of the administrative and mechanical labor around storytelling. But I certainly am doing so with the very clear mission and intention of creating the space and the time for the humans and the extraordinary talents in the room. And I will respectfully disagree with Dr. Mohammed Fahmy earlier. I believe, especially in my industry, there's extraordinary talent available. Maybe we're just not always utilizing them in the right way. And I'm using that time that we're creating in order to allow the humans to do what the machines, or to allow the humans to leverage what the machines don't have. And what's that? Emotional nuance, cultural intuition, human perspective, investigative thinking. And all of that plays into a massive shift in the media industry where, you know, traditionally the internet was rewarding. What was it rewarding? It was rewarding when it came to content. It was rewarding volume, speed, clickability, and optimization. The very basics of the digital economy was forcing people like me to produce more and more and more content just to survive. عشان نعرف ناكل عيش. But what does the AI do? The AI completely dismantles that formula because suddenly you and I and the man on the street can create an infinite amounts of content at the click of a finger. And what happens when the content is infinite? It loses its value. Any commodity loses its value once it's infinite, right? So then what has value instead? Trust. Trust becomes valuable. Taste becomes valuable. Human discernment becomes valuable. And you can see that already in the rise of personality-led journalism. Your favorite podcast hosts, someone like Syed. I saw Shadi Sharif in the room earlier on. You can see it in perspective-led news programming. You can see it in the rise of media, independent media ecosystems such as Substack. Who in here is familiar with Substack? Go check out Substack.
Go check out Amy's subject.
Thank
It's
you, Mala, for
phenomenal.
doing that on my
But
behalf.
Amy, I want to just pause for a minute in what you're saying. What I'm hearing from you is AI is a tool for amplification, for reaching further.
Yeah.
But it's not a tool for creating.
No,
The creation is still a human endeavor.
I'll tell you what's going to happen. And I believe this is going to happen. And this is the most important thing, especially when it comes to the Middle East. And there is a lot of conversation in the room today. And I understand, given the type of crowd around the tech and the financing and the payment systems, there's a big conversation that remains missing. And it's horrifying if we don't pay attention to it. And it's around our stories. So yes, it is a tool, but what we need to do
pause on that, because I do want to go into that. I want to talk about that in a lot more detail.
Okay.
But I'm just going to pause and I'm going to move on to Amer.
Sure, go for it.
Mounir, can you hold your thought?
But just to react to
Okay, go ahead.
I'm in complete disagreement.
Okay, good.
It's complete.
This makes for a good discussion.
I'm in complete. I think AI is in a very, very early stage of the journey. And we have already seen people falling in love with their AI agent. Yani, if a man wakes up in the morning and he has and he sees a beautiful sunrise, and he say, "Oh, what a beautiful sunrise," and then his wife tells him, "Shut up! I want to sleep. You're waking me up." But then you have a voice, an AI agent who's telling you, it's with exactly the right words, with exactly the right tone you want to hear.
It's like that movie. What was that movie called?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And then
Her.
suddenly you have a human being who's developing an emotional connection
Yeah.
to an agent, to a
Yeah,
bot.
But that's,
This is happening.
yeah, I know.
What I want to say, and I'm just contesting
Yes.
the emotional connection part. So what's happening, and it's scary, and we have to acknowledge it's happening. And people, very lonely people in countries where you don't have a lot of sun, get depressed, and they connect with these agents. We read in the newspaper that you have an individual who's filing against the government to have the AI agent vote. You have this. This exists. And you have people who are killing themselves because they're in love with the AI agent. This is happening. So emotions happening, creativity. I'm very, very sad to tell you, if I'm redesigning my house and I put 6 of the top designers I like and I throw it into the bot and I tell him I want to develop a 400 square meter house inspired by these 4 architects. Please design the ping pong. I have a design. Oh, I don't like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 year from now, the agent will know I won't even need to probe which are the 4 architects I like.
I think Inji might have something to say about that.
By the way, I think
I'm
just want to
just
add
saying.
one line. Hang on, you're both right, and you're going to converge to some point in the future
Exactly.
with both tracks.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a path for both directions,
I truly
I think.
completely agree with both of you. Okay. And I don't think that these are opposite opinions.
Yeah.
These are 2 opinions in parallel tracks that will continue to go down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mounir. Amer, nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Malak.
I'd like to know your perspective on how you see AI being delivered to customers through the telecom networks generally. I know that 5G is being rolled out in Egypt and beyond. How are you seeing that rollout as enabling or helping to bring AI to a wider group of people?
Thank you, Malak. Actually, the AI has been in the telecom industry for a while, but now the most exciting about it is the next phase, when we have the AI coming into the people's life, impacting the economy of the country, the GDP, how this will be reflected. And the good news that we have welcomed 5G in Egypt last year as the first phase is the early stage of 5G, with a solid roadmap being put by the government down the road for the coming 5 years. So what have came to Egypt recently is what we call it the 5G non-standalone. This one of the technology is kind of 4G++ that gives more speed with some applications that's interesting maybe for the new generations. If we talk about like gaming industry, virtual reality and this stuff, that high speed is coming. But what is most interesting is what's coming next. When we talk about the 5G standalone, where we will have the connected devices, we connect the communities. Speaking about Egypt, we know, for example, that agriculture is a key pillar of the Egyptian economy. وآي ثينك يعني معلوم للجميع إنه العالم سيواجه أو يواجه اليوم أزمة غذاء وأزمة مياه. no enough food and enough water for the people. And think about it now when we, by 5G, enabling the connectivity of the agricultural industry of doing this efficiency, more production, more productivity, control of the waste of the water, how this will look like in the economy, how this will help Egypt in standing up in its global position when it comes to that specific use case. Many use cases are coming down the road. For example, when we talk about the medical sector, they are talking about like robot doing an operations. Does the government need to invest in each and every village to have a fully equipped hospital? I don't think so. Maybe you will have it centralized with the AI, enabling the people living maybe في الصعيد, في الساحل, في أي مكان, to do the operations with a doctor maybe sitting in Cairo or somewhere else.
That's already happening, not in Egypt, but
not in Egypt.
in other places.
That's what's coming to Egypt, hopefully with the 5G standalone introduction. A lot of examples على القطاع الصناعي, for example. A lot of production improvement is happening in the industry where you have a 5G enabled factories that's using AI completely to improve the production and increase it and enhance it. That will help also the economy. And there are clear statistics talking about the GDP improvement by introducing 5G using the AI in such use cases. So if we're looking to the future looks very optimistic for me. I believe that Egypt can leverage on this.
And there's no doubt that telecom is the conduit to the people for all of this.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So we were providing only connectivity. Today we are going connectivity, speed, and the latency. You will have billions of devices connected, not like before. It's not only about us as end users using our mobile for connectivity. You will connect each and every device. You will connect a drone watching the corpse. You are connecting devices watching the statistics across many industries. So it's a revolution in my view. It's coming, and Egypt is planning to leverage into this one, especially with the digital vision and roadmap that we have 2030 led by the government.
Yes. Thank you, Amer. Thank you. Karima, I'd like to move on to you, and we have 12 minutes left for the entire panel. So can we try and keep it to 5 so that we can then just open up to all of us?
Sure.
You are a VC and you're aware of a lot of what the market is looking for around us here. You've spoken of the need to create a healthy and dynamic private sector as a key to moving forward with innovation and sustainable growth. Take us on that journey of where the private sector needs to be in order for it to be a delivery mechanism for all this new technology.
Thank you very much, Malak, for asking this question, and just for a quick commentary on the debate. I agree with Ahmed. It's two opinions, but it's also related to the user interface. When we have hybrid machines that are now mimicking more and more humans, this is where, again, in the next 10 years, when we see this deployment, we can find a middle ground in that opinion. But to your questions about the private sector, and this goes back to the panel I had the pleasure to moderate, it's really the practice. And as I started the conversation by saying that VCs and investors, regardless of the type of capital, are looking for use cases, are looking for healthy growth revenues, this is when we expect the private sector to step in. I've studied, and you mentioned a trip to the US. I spent 3 weeks in Boston and Cambridge, actually, finishing a fellowship that I was doing. And part of the studies that I was doing is really study the 5 stakeholder model that makes an ecosystem healthy. And it's an MIT REAP model that is proprietary to them. And the 5 stakeholders are, first, the entrepreneurs, my favorites, and the founders themselves who are leading. The government is playing a huge role in this, the venture capital or the risk capital, and again, the private sector, the corporates, and the 5th one is the universities. And I actually listed them in our strength and weakest stakeholder when it comes to a market like Egypt, with the lowest scoring stakeholders being the corporates and then the universities. Again, to Dr. Mohammed Fahmy, which I actually agree, Amy, he was talking about the PhD talents. These are the researchers in the labs that are decreasing. It's not the tech talent and the talent as a whole for Egypt. So this is more on the deep tech talent that he's seeing decrease in universities as researchers and PhD holders. For these 5 stakeholders, the weakest two are in Egypt, or in a market like Egypt, are the corporates and the universities. For the private sector, we're looking at very small sizes, and when they're not thriving, when companies are not thriving, they're surviving. So they're not really investing. They're not doing like what Mounir has advised the corporates who are building with a lot of data. So the small SMEs are not doing that. So by enabling this space, so the smaller companies and the small private sector, and enabling them with productivity tools and service efficiencies, we're not asking them to create their own models, but to feed the large language models with their proprietary data. So SMEs in Egypt have a very defensible situation because they're dealing with data that not the big ones they're not looking at. So they have unique data sets. What do they do with this? They don't do anything with it. So if they start appropriating it the right way, we can create sector specific, let's say, I don't want to use the leaping because maybe this is too ambitious, but sector specific, let's say, I want to say specialization for Egypt. So agricultural sector will thrive like this. So the small farmers and the aggregation of these SMEs that work in the service sector of this. The healthcare sector can thrive, maybe not, but for Egypt, it's agri and tourism, basically. So these two sectors can find the defensibility. So the private sector is important. And again, unfortunately, universities are very well underfunded. But if we look at something that we can do surgically and really quickly, fixing the adoption rate of SMEs and even the smaller cap, mid-cap corporates in Egypt can really allow the startups and the general ecosystem to build on further.
Thanks, Karima. There was a point that you made and Amy had made as well. And I think it's something that we didn't really talk about in a few of the other panels, which is how do we make sure that whatever AI is coming down the line is Arabized and is relevant to us, that we are not taking what is being given to us by Western-centric LLMs. Amy, you made this point to me privately. How do we feed the machine with our information?
I mean, it goes back to what I was saying. We need to invest heavily in credible media institutions that are able to leverage AI to create the cost efficiencies to do what is essentially a very expensive task, which is empower our Arab journalists and our Arab storytellers to go out into the world and find our contemporary stories and tell them and package them in a way that does not already exist inside the computer, because any information you're getting from AI is something that already exists somewhere in our consciousness. So who is going out and getting our Arab stories and investing them into our systems, number one. And number two, on the flip side, using these AI tools to be able to digitize our archives, to document our Arab histories.
Accelerating at light speed of finding new drugs, novel solutions, and novel cures to different problems. Number one. Number two, I'm tying this back now to the earlier discussion of fintechs and financial inclusion, right? If we spend all our money on financial inclusion and bringing the bottom of the pyramid up, there's not going to be a pyramid anymore. It's going to be a flat line. We have to spend and invest in the top of the pyramid and lift up the top of the pyramid in this country, which is our top scientists, our top tech people, and lift them up and invest in those guys as much as we invest across the bottom of the pyramid. And that's really kind of the message that got lost, and I was really pounding the table on a couple of days ago in Kenya.
Are you referring to a brain drain that's happening?
No, I don't think there's a brain drain. I think actually there's a brain return. And I think the thing that I've been continuing proposing is we have to have a brain recirculation, okay, where they go learn and come back, go train and come back, collaborate.
That was mentioned in a previous panel as well.
My top semiconductor company, their 6 PhDs all got their PhDs in France and came back, okay? And when you mentioned robotics, this one company in Egypt is making the chips that they are now pitching to all the top robotics companies in the world because robots can see and hear. And with these chips that we designed here that are Egyptian company, robots can taste and smell.
Karima, I cut you off earlier.
So no, it's fine.
Please,
but
go ahead.
I just wanted to make a very quick distinction and bring this forward to inclusion as well. So maybe when you mentioned the Arab language and this, I want to step away from Arabic language because this is more on the generative model. But really, what
I didn't mean language as much as culture and heritage and identity.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
building on this, actually, so we spoke about the SMEs being also a potential opportunity for Egypt to grow its private sector capabilities for procurement and deployment of AI technologies. But what we have also is this data that is not present in the capital cities. So when you go in the muhafazat and you go to actually create use cases for, again, going back to the agri space for agricultural efficiencies and data sets. So when you create that, and you will build your defensibility towards other solutions that can come in from abroad, because they will train their models based on this very unique data sets that they can get from places where no one is. So really, and the learning was that I was actually looking at in Africa. I got a partner title for Africa, and now my main concern is really going down to the muhafazat. So I'm pissed off. I pissed off so many people in my work now that we're looking at investing more deep down. But this is where I think Egypt can be.
Thanks, Karima. Mounir.
Malak, I think the debate is a real philosophical debate. And how do you preserve culture and identity? How do you storytell? Yani, I couldn't help but think when you were saying we need to...
That you wanted to invest in media institutions? Is that what you were thinking, Mounir?
100%.
Okay, great.
100%.
Let's
No,
talk after.
I couldn't.
Okay.
I couldn't.
There's a breakout room over there.
I couldn't stop thinking about, are we documenting it because we're going to go obsolete? Or are we documenting it for what? And I really think the change is so dramatic, and we're just starting to see the change. And 3 years down the line, when we look back, we're gonna say, "Oh my God, how did all this happen in 3 years?" So
That's exactly how I'm concluding, actually, because I think what we're witnessing now, we're at the very, very beginning of a very, very long journey. I want to thank you all. Thank you for a really great discussion. We just began, really. There's a lot we can talk about, but time constraints. Thank you all very much. And
thank you, Malak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malak.